He expects to be scrapped immediately for all his trouble. Instead, they dump him in a scrapyard and leave him there. He spends the winter there, asleep, too cold to stay awake for any longer than a few minutes at a time. When spring comes, and the ice and snow melt puddles around him, he feels the itching ache of rust crawling amongst his wheels. Summer brings with it the tickle of weeds growing up around him and a burning heat of sun he is not used to. He spends his days watching the traffic on the railway just over the fence he sits beside. There are still steam engines here. Many are painted in shades of green with the letters GWR painted on them, and he realizes he must be on the Great Western Railway. There are diesels here too, of course. They sneer insults at him as they pass, and Douglas does his best to ignore them. But sometimes he snaps back, yelling worse insults and cursing them in Gaelic. The steam engines, on the other hand, whistle, sometimes cheerfully, sometimes mournfully, in greeting. There is one engine Douglas sees frequently, a 1400 auto tank painted in GWR green, often with a specific grey brake van in tow. He whistles as he passes, and sometimes, when he stops at the nearby signal, he says hi. Douglas replies in kind, but they never exchange anything more, not even names. Time passes then, and at first he counts the seasons, 1 summer, 2, then 3. As the years go by, he sees less and less steam engines pass on the railway beyond the fence. More often than not, engines he sees on the line disappear, only to crop up in the yard around him later. They come and go, but Douglas stays. So does the green painted auto tank running up and down the line, at first with passengers as well as goods, now only with goods. At once clean and polished, he's now grubby and neglected. The brake van that accompanies him shabby as well, until he is the only steam engine left on the line. Still, they greet each other every day, friends even if they don't know each other's names, until this too comes to a bitter end. It's early autumn of the 8th year when the day finally arrives that the little green tank engine doesn't come. Douglas waits, at first thinking, hoping, that he's only running late. But still he doesn't come, and Douglas knows. When he shuts his eyes to sleep, he dreams of Scotland and Donald and Scrap and the nameless green auto tank who ran until the end. They meld together the way dreams do, into a confusing blend of past, present, and things that never really happened at all. When he wakes up the next morning, he's disoriented and uncomfortably warm despite the chilly morning air, but decidedly not alone, for dumped next to him on a previously vacant track is the green auto tank. Douglas blinks in surprise, though perhaps he oughtn't be, and shakes himself awake. "It's ye," he says, voice scratchy and accent thick from disuse and sleep. The other engine laughs, despite their situation, and it's such a foreign sound to Douglas, who never thought he'd ever hear such a thing again. "I could say the same to you. What's it been, then? A decade?" Douglas sighs. 8 years. He chuckles, if only to keep the mood light. "Prefer gathering rust on a siding to being scrapped, do you?" "I didn't choose to stay here. If it was up to me, I wouldn't have been caught in the first place," Douglas replies. He looks interested now. "You were on the run, then? You're not from around here, either." He pauses, seemingly doing mental calculations. "You were that escaped scrap engine from Scotland, weren't you?" "Aye. 'Twas all for naught in the end." They lapse into silence after that, watching diesels pass out on the line and thinking back to days gone by. Finally, Douglas speaks, the curiosity getting the better of him. What's your name? If you have one, that is, he asks. Oh, the other engine gasps, as if suddenly realizing this long overlooked detail. I'm Oliver. Wait, why wouldn't I have a name? Douglas shifts as his rusted parts creak. A lot of engines didn't have names in Scotland. Is that different here? Well, says Oliver, most engines here have names. I think it kind of depends on the railway, though. Some people like us to have names, others don't care. Do you have a name? If you don't, we ought to give you one. It wouldn't be right to die as only a number. Douglas chuckles, a scratchy sound. Aye, 'tis Douglas. My brother and I gave each other names. He goes quiet then, thinking of Donald. What happened to him? Was he scrapped? Is that why you ran? Oliver asks carefully. Douglas looks up. No, he was sold. I fear you'll think me crazy if I tell you to where. Everyone else certainly did. The smaller engine looks intrigued. Try me. Sodor, Douglas sighs, looking at him from the corner of his eye as if he's embarrassed to believe such a thing. Oliver laughs, and Douglas, feeling his cheeks heat up, sinks lower on the rails. I told you so. No, I mean, he glances around as if to make sure no one listening in and lowers his voice. That's where I'm going, or trying to at least. My crew's coming for me tonight. Douglas stares. You're joking, man. Do you ken how many times I've been told it doesn't exist, that it's just a fairy story, no a proper railway? A lot, I'll bet, but it does. An engine from here went there maybe a decade ago. The driver's been there too. He knows the way, Oliver explains in a whisper. You're the first one I've met who's been willing to admit that, says Douglas. So where is it? Oliver smiles. West, off the coast of Barrow-in-Furness. There's a railway drawbridge that connects it to the mainland. Douglas shuts his eyes, biting back tears. That's so simple, he whispers. Louder, he continues. Coal was hard to come by even 8 years ago. I cannot imagine what it's like now. He pauses. Take my tender. You can fill it before you go. When you get there, take it to the 812 called Donald. He'll ken. Oliver rolls a bit closer, grinning. How about I take the rest of you too? Douglas's eyes fly open. What? You heard me, says Oliver. It'd be a sight better than just your tender, and I bet your brother would think so too. Aye, Douglas agrees, but he looks crestfallen. But I can't run, Oliver. I've been sitting here for near on a decade in the rain. I'm likely rusted solid. But my tender need only roll along behind you. Take it, even if it doesn't make it all the way. Oliver is vehement in his reply. I don't care if you can't run, Douglas. I'll pulley you too. I'll only slow you down, Douglas points out. I fear you willna make it with me dragging behind you. Oliver snorts. Nonsense. You sound like you want to be scrapped. Don't you want to see your brother again? Gosh, I know I'd like to see my siblings again. They're all gone, though. You're lucky one of yours is still around, so don't lie. Douglas, eyes closed in remembrance, isn't about to. More than anything, he's my twin, you ken. We didn't like to be separated much. I hope he's okay. Oliver is grinning again. Good, he says. And I'm going and you're coming with me.